Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And this is Bob Gibbons, and we're here with another great guest today. We have Calvin Carter. And Calvin is the CEO and founder of Bottle Rocket, a 10-year-old company that specializes in apps of all kinds. Any app you need for anything, Bottle Rocket can do it. They've got some amazing clients, Southwest Airlines, National Public Radio, and a lot of other things. You can find more about them at bottlerocketstudios.com. Welcome, Calvin.
Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So we like to start off every show with the wisdom of others, and we thought you had a great quote today. You want to share it?
Sure. So I do like quotes. The problem is I can never get them just right. But you could probably Google to find out the exact quote. But there's one from Steve Jobs, and he's got a bunch, where he talks about, and he introduces the word next into his language, which for those of you who have followed Steve, you know that the word next is so important in his life. And it goes something like, if you do something pretty good, don't dwell on it too long, figure out what's next. And by ending that quote, that word next, it propels you to think about, what are you passionate about? What are you going to move to next? If you're doing your passion, if you're giving your gift to the world and doing what you love to do, all you want to think about is what's next, because you're living into your gift, you're living into your purpose, and you're focusing on going forward all the time. You can never be done with the thing you love.
You talked about lean in. I've heard you speak about lean in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a similar concept, always leaning toward improving, doing something better, finding a new way to do it.
Exactly.
Feeling forward.
Yeah, lean is a great word to use because, especially we humans, we sometimes have a hard time committing to something, committing to only one direction, only one thing. But it's really easy to lean. The hard thing to do is continue to lean forever, to always be leaning forward. So many things in our lives make us pull back. And some of us are wired to pull back pretty fast. But if we can just always be leaning in the same direction, it's just so powerful. I mean, the email signature when I send emails from my iPhone says something about, from my iPhone 10 running iOS 11, proof that passionate people all leaning in the same direction can achieve amazing things together. Anything is possible, even if it's a small group just leaning forward. Gandhi and others have proven that before us. It's just always about leaning forward and leaning consistently.
So I understand that you started a company while you were still in college.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So my parents were very generous to me, and when I came to college, they sent me with a pretty great Mac setup. So I had a Mac 2 CX, I think it was a CX, and I had a laser printer. You have to understand that in 1989, on the entire campus of SMU, there may have been 2 laser printers,
printers
like $1 a print.
Professors didn't have that.
No one had that. So I was pretty well armed when I went to school, and became quick friends with a guy named Elliot Hawks, who was also in the same dorm, and he was probably like 5, rooms down, and we pulled the carpet up, and we laid a telephone cable, which would be used. You could basically do local talk, which was the Macintosh networking LAN protocol at the time. And so we had a network. We had 2 computers on a network and a laser printer on a network in our dorm, which is somewhat embarrassing, but also it was so cool. Here we are, 2 kids, in the same dorm. Both had pretty decent Mac setups. He had a Mac SE30, which was the fastest small box Mac ever made. And we connected those things together, and we had a network. And we then essentially started to turn it into a business. And at first it was for beer money. We charged SMU, and they were happy to pay us to run all of their computer labs. I mean, no one else had a network. They didn't even have a network.
Wow.
So we were probably the most qualified people on campus as newbie freshmen to run. And so we set up and installed, all of their dormitory network computers, and we managed them over time. That's when I learned the idea of managed services, recurring revenue, contracts that go out into the future, so you're not on a treadmill every day trying to close something. You got to sing for your supper every day, that sort of thing. So we did that, and then that turned into maybe like $20 an hour consulting services. And at the time, Aldous PageMaker was a big deal. We were printing up newsletters and menus for restaurants and stuff like that, because page layout, desktop, layout was a big deal at the time. Now it's no big deal, but that was the edge, and so we knew how to do it, and so we were in pretty high demand. We also graduated from college, but we really focused on our business.
And what happened to that business?
You grew a pretty substantial business out of it, didn't you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Both Elliot and I went and got jobs after school. He went to Apple, and I went to Price Waterhouse, and we both had good jobs. I mean, these are both places that provide great employment and great opportunities and everything, but neither one of us fit. We were always more focused on what we did after 6 p.m. than what we did between 9 and 6 p.m. or whatever the work hours were. We always gave a fair shake to our employers, but we moonlit. And we kept those customers, and we worked our tails off. I would come home, change clothes, because I'd wear a tie, Price Waterhouse, and I would either get on my computer or get in the car and head to a client's, and I would work all night installing some network or building some. I was pretty good at building client-server-based databases and point-of-sale systems and things like that, custom to clients. And we would do that. And by like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like, well, I have to go to bed so I can get enough sleep so I can go get my job done so that I can come back to work, if that makes sense. So, and then we did that for about a year. And then we decided we had enough business built up. We got one really big gig. And if we had more time, I'd tell you about the gig. It was kind of a crazy one. I almost took Elliot's eye out when drilling through the floor when we were installing a local area network in an office. But it didn't. He's fine. And then that turned into a real business. We grew that to about 60, 65 great engineers and designers. We were building CD-ROM applications. We were very well positioned in 1997 when things like AudioNet were popping up and companies were thinking about using the web. Email was, in vogue, and we started building really great websites in 98 and 99. Did the Dallas Stars local stuff like Dallas Stars website. We did the virtual seat selector where you could see the ice from any seat at the time Reunion Arena. So it was easier for people to feel good about buying tickets, or it's easy to upsell people. Don't you want this view instead of that view? Oh yeah, for sure.
That's early to be doing that.
Oh yeah, I mean we did that like years and years before anyone had done that. And long story short, we had a great opportunity combined. The company was called i.con Interactive, to combine that with 7 other firms from around the nation to build one company with over 1,000 employees and pretty decent revenues. And we went public, like a legitimate IPO. And for a time there, Elliot and I were worth an enormous amount of money on paper. Just a like a life-altering, generational number.
And how did that turn out?
Well, for those of you who know you've been through an IPO, you you have a lockup on your stock, or at least we did,
For how long?
and for a year.
Okay.
And then during that year was the crash. So literally every dollar of increase in value that went up was taken away on the way down. So by the time the lockup was complete, it was worth nothing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was worth nothing.
That's-
And the cash that we received from the deal, we primarily provided to the employees. So there was most of that was actually practically all of that was Elliot and I decided to give that to the employees as a thank you for helping us do that. And then we took the stock, and the stock went to zero.
So how do you lean into that, or what's next between that and Bottle Rocket? What did you do?
The interesting thing is at the time, you get hurt and you kind of pull away and you think like, well, I'm not going to do that again. Mm-hmm. So the story I told myself was, well, I'm not going to do another professional services company again. I'm not going to do another employee-centric was the word I used at the time. And you got to realize at this point, I'm like in my late 20s. I'm still a kid.
Sure.
Well, I'd like to consider maybe still a kid now, but I'm a lot older now. So, you connect pain and you start to make belief systems like, oh, I shouldn't do that again. That's a bad idea. Right. And I've got a really great friend in my life named Ernst Young, and he said, no, man, that's your gift. You're going to do it again. You just don't know it yet. And so I tried everything in the book not to do that again. I did a lot of real estate stuff. I am not a skilled and qualified real estate investor or developer. I'm just not. I'd like to consider myself, pretty crafty and smart, and I can try to apply myself. And I work really hard when I find something and I commit myself to something. So I had some real estate investment success, but when real estate started getting hard, it wasn't fun. And if something gets hard and it's not fun, then that's probably not your gift. It's when something in your life gets hard and you double down your excitement and your interest and your commitment, that's when you know you're doing something you love. So I realized that I was in the wrong business because the business I was in, when it got hard, and it got hard, I checked out. So then, in 2007, I was kind of out of things for about a year, had an injury, just kind of out of things. And I went to, and then it was, so I was kind of closed up. I was injured and I was kind of, really kind of hurt, physically hurt. So you're kind of fold into yourself in that too. And then I saw on March 6, 2008, a keynote from Steve Jobs where he opened up the iPhone to third-party developers. And where there was no apps before, now there can be apps. There was no app store before, now there can be an app store. And he didn't just open up the app store. He didn't just open up the iPhone. He opened up me. And the next morning, I went to Office Depot, bought graph paper and pencils, sat in my house, and when I got tired of my house, I would sit in a Starbucks. And I would sketch and sketch and sketch app idea after app idea. And over time, turn that into a business that I love. Over 200 great, creative, technical people working really hard and building amazing things.
And we're going to talk more about that when we get back.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
Today's confession: tenants are not a landlord's primary client. Believe it or not, tenants are not just second on a landlord's list of clients, they're actually number 3. Landlords consider the investors who give them money to buy buildings their number 1 client. That makes sense. If they give them the money, they get to buy more buildings. That's what landlords are in the business to do. Tenant rep brokers are actually the number 2 client because while a tenant may sign a lease once every 5 years, the tenant rep broker may show that landlord several deals during that same period of time. So the tenant rep brokers are considered by landlords to be the number 2 client. And then the tenants who actually pay the rent are number 3. Seems shocking, but make sure that you're represented by a broker to move you up on the food chain when dealing with landlords.
What is the dream for your business? Is it to grow, scale, and make an impact in the lives of your team members and your industry? Or just to create more freedom for yourself? Too often, administrative complexities get in the way, such as keeping up with regulations, buying and managing the ever-changing and increasing cost of insurance and human resource solutions. Do you ever spend time wondering, are we really operating as efficiently as we can? Are we properly insured? Are we Affordable Care Act, Trump Care Act, whatever Care Act is next compliant? The solution we're currently using helped us get from 2 to 20 employees, but is it what we need to get to 200? If so, you likely need an active partner and solution to help you take back control, and Alkali can help. At Alkali, we have a long-term solution called the Empowered Advantage that puts business owners and their executive teams back in control with maximum value and minimal effort. Our strategies allow you to shift your focus back to your dream for your business, and best of all, our process adjusts with you as you grow. Entrepreneurs, business owners, and their executive teams who work with us have more control and operate at higher levels than their competitors. Are you ready to go to the next level? Visit alkaliservices.com or call us today to get started.
My name is Blake Shook, and I'm the owner of Desert Creek Honey, and I've been here talking about bees and honey with Bob and Steven. I'm hoping to create some sweet buzz for their show because they certainly need it.
We're back with Calvin Carter, BottleRocketStudios.com.
So just before the break, we were talking, and you said that you were closed in. You were still having problems from having lost all the money from your previous company that went public. And then you heard a speech by Steve Jobs, a keynote address. What was it about that address that opened you back up, as you put it?
So you got to realize that, back when I was 9 years old was when I touched my first computer, and it was an Apple II. I was predisposed to Steve's way and his way of thinking and the kind of products and experiences that he has made possible through Apple. So yeah, I was already an iPhone fanboy. I was one of the ones that sat in the heat, for the Knox Henderson Apple store to get the first phone. And, so I was already one of those guys. The only difference was I brought a battery-operated blender and made margaritas. But for me, and I remember it very, and I don't remember much, but it was probably 1 a.m. I was watching the keynote on my laptop. Kelly, who was pregnant with our twin daughters, my now 9-year-old twin daughters, was next to me. And when I saw that, and I knew there was so much more potential in the iPhone, but the iPhone was completely closed. Mm-hmm. I knew there was more, and I was just really jonesing for an opportunity to do something with it. But it was a closed system. You could jailbreak it, but you can't build a business based on an illegal activity. But when he opened that, it opened my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many things that this phone could do. And of course, some of those ideas were kind of silly, and some of those ideas were pretty good.
But this was like an immediate aha moment for you?
It was literally immediate. It was, and it is not a joke when I say that at 9 in the morning or 8 in the morning, whenever I woke up the next day, I got in the car. I did the one thing I knew I could do. I leaned in. I didn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. If I had taken the time to come up with a plan, I would have taken too much time. Mm-hmm. If I had taken the time to figure out exactly what I was going to do with this new opportunity, I would have never done it because I've spent all the time figuring it out. So I just leaned in. I said, one thing I can do. I've got a lot of ideas in my head. Maybe I should write them down. Got graph paper, got pencils. I'm a visual person, so I started sketching app ideas. And when I mean an app idea, I don't mean sketch like one phone, like an image of one phone. I mean detailed user interaction schematics of this is what it looks like when you do this. When you hit this button, it does this. And so there's 50 to 100 individual cells, if you would, for any basic app idea. And I did 31 or 33. I can't remember the exact number of those. So there's thousands of cells that I wrote in a matter of a couple of months at a Starbucks or at the house.
And how many of those 31 turned into something that actually is on Apple Store?
So 8 of those I picked. And I didn't know if they were going to be the right ones. I just kind of this one feels right. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've got a great background in, the creative space, the technology space, but I'm like a C+ engineer at best. So I needed help. Mm-hmm. I needed other people to get this going. And you can't, at that time, you couldn't put a want ad out for app developer. They didn't exist outside of Cupertino, in my opinion. So it was Craigslist. I went to Craigslist and I posted on Craigslist hey, is anyone interested in going on a crazy journey with me? Who else has downloaded the iPhone SDK, the software development kit? Who else has paid the $99 to get that kit? I have. What about you? And I got about, I think about like maybe probably about 8 people all over New York and Southern California and Austin, and I think there was even one in Dallas. Never even met these people in person, and we built 8 apps together, and over email and phone calls and Skype and stuff like that. And a great friend and former colleague, Brian Grodowski, who runs a wonderful design shop. He helped me design the 8 apps. It was just a great sounding board for everything. He helped build the Bottle Rocket branding. And by the end of 2008, I had 8 apps on the App Store.
And how many of those sold?
Well, the first 7 didn't. I'll tell you that much.
So 1 out of 8.
It was failure after financial failure after financial failure. The apps, they were well designed, they were performant, they worked, they either followed or elevated Apple's human interface guidelines. They were good apps. It's just that I way miscalculated what the demand would be in terms of people willing to part with money to get an app.
Right.
And so financially, that was rough. And I had kind of bet everything on this, and I was in it. And there's like, my dad and Winston Churchill both have taught me never give up, never give in. My dad's format of that is never give up, never give in. And so it was just keep going, keep going, keep going. And then number 8, it did make me a millionaire, but it made some decent money. And it was right around that time that I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with some people at Apple who were able to, through a Tech Talk series they were doing, they were able to give me some advice. They also really liked the work. They appreciated the fact that I was building a company 100% committed to building great experiences, apps, great experience for the Apple App Store. And just about everyone else were one-hit wonders. They were one-and-doners. They would do an app, and if it made money, great. If it didn't money, okay. And then they went back to their day job. I was in it. I set up a brand, Bottle Rocket, the website, and I was open for business, building my own apps. Because remember, at the time, I was not seeking an employee-centric professional service business. Mm-hmm. But NPR was on the market looking to build their own app. And I had the great opportunity to be one of like 11 people pitching for this.
How did they find you? Or how did you find them?
Because of the apps. So my 8 apps, 7 being failures, in the App Store, all of them said designed and developed by Bottle Rocket, designed and developed by Bottle Rocket. So I had, and I didn't plan this, guys, but I ended up having a portfolio of work. I had 8 apps that really were well designed and they worked in the App Store. And my name was on every single one of them. It's just I tagged it. I believe that craftspeople, artists, skilled people should sign their work.
Yeah.
And so I signed the work. And that ended up being a really good idea. And so when I met with NPR, again, just over the phone, I didn't have the money to fly there. Unlike probably my competitors, what I did after a couple of phone calls with them, actually one phone call with them, that night I sketched the app. Got to realize I had that muscle built up, right? I had completely sketched out 33 apps. I could sketch 1.
Sure.
And the ideas were flowing. I approached, I created a different kind of approach to engaging with radio, and made it more dynamic, made it more personalized, made it more contextualized, and made it more iPhone. So I didn't just take radio and stick it on an iPhone.
Nice.
I created an experience that was truly iPhone, that was a radio experience. And the next day, I'm like, here's your app. This is what I see. And they were blown away. Later on, many years later, like, why did you hire me? They said, no one else had the vision. No one else turned those pencils overnight. All those failures built up a muscle that allowed me to succeed with NPR. And if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't gotten out there and put myself out there on the App Store and put my name on there and do it in volume, not just one, but 8, there's no way I would have met with NPR. There's no way I would have met with Apple.
So did you continue building apps for sale on the Apple's App Store, or did you totally go corporate from then on?
I pivoted fast. So one, I was then starting to see a better way of approaching a business in doing it. Because if you can like live your gift and love what you do and do what you're passionate about and turn it into a great business, wow, isn't that terrific?
It's amazing.
So I felt like building apps for others was a much better business venture.
And you get paid on every one.
You do. You do. So, and as people, others, not just me, others will attest to, when there is a disruptive technology, it is the seemingly meaningless players who end up creating meaningful solutions. The meaningful players of any technology thing would be the current giants. So you would take like whoever in 2008, in 2009 were kicking butt in massive technology, custom software implementations, whoever those companies were. Those companies bat 0 on a disruptive technology. And
Too much to lose?
Too much to lose, don't see it, feel like they don't need it, don't understand it, became successful in something other, so they don't see that their success is tied to maybe something in the future. They're not willing to disrupt themselves. I mean, the incentive systems inside of large corporations are not designed to have leaders disrupt that organization. They're designed to just keep it going.
Right.
One more year, one more quarter. So, but for me, I was all in. I already told you guys I was all in. So I had an opportunity to build apps for Disney, ESPN, American Express, all in that first year. And why would they be hiring a kid working out of his house?
Because you
Why?
signed your app.
Because I was an expert, just because I had done all of that stuff, and was willing to work hard and was able to use that muscle I had built up, and we built a business on it.
So we only have about a minute left, but in that minute, tell us what happened a few years ago when somebody from London started calling.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I'm not a big believer. I self-funded Bottle Rocket 100%. Never took on outside investors, and I did that because I did not want to be beholden to an exit strategy. I didn't want an exit strategy prescribed on me. I know that it's an entrepreneur's rule to have an exit strategy going into stuff. I just don't follow that belief system. I go where my heart takes me, and an exit strategy may or may not present itself. So, and it's kind of a long story for a minute, but essentially we got a call, and we kept getting a call, and over a period of a little over a year, we built a relationship with WPP, really connected with them, and I realized that they could provide me the platform that would be necessary to take Bottle Rocket to the next level. Being independently funded meant that I was the only backstop for a growing and growing and growing payroll. And if I was going to do the right thing for my employees, I needed to make sure that we weren't just innovative, but we were built to last.
Well, Calvin, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
We've really enjoyed it. For our listeners, please go to bottlerocketstudios.com to learn more, and go to nextlevelshow.com to learn more about the show.
Spread the word. Have a great week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.